Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Got another tree story for you. Randy sent it in this time from WGRZ out of Washington. County sues homeowners after 140 trees are cut down. The county alleges that 3 residents cut down over 140 trees on public land to enhance their view. Now the county is seeking nearly $7 million. A trail camera set up to capture wildlife caught something no one expected, and that is a tree sliding down a hillside in a park. That discovery has now led to a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. King County is suing several homeowners, saying that they cut down more than 140 trees on protected public land. The lawsuit alleges the cutting was done to improve property owners' views of West Tiger Mountain. Don't know if that's the same Tiger Mountain from Taking Tiger Mountain. But the trail camera belongs to Alex Brown, who told King 5 that his trail camera usually picks up wildlife. Pretty much every day we see a bear coming by the camera, bobcats, cougars, mountain lions. Trail camera sends an alert to his phone when there's movement, and he says he never would have expected to see a tree sliding past the camera. To see a tree just flying down the hill like a javelin was pretty alarming. So he went to investigate, and he found cut stumps and branches scattered within the park's boundary. Found that quite a few trees have been cut up there within the park boundary. A lot of them are still lying on that slope, which is alarming to those of us living down here. One of the neighbors who walks the nearby trails daily says that she stopped to look at one of the trees because it was so close to her home. It was just pretty scary because this is part of our regular little loop that we come and walk most days. So the guy with the camera reported the incident to the county, which started an investigation that led to the current lawsuit. County is now seeking nearly $7 million in damages, arguing that tree cutting was done to create or enhance private views. Now, keep in mind, these people are being sued. It's a civil action. It's a lawsuit. Presumably, somebody could also be prosecuted for destruction of public property. But they've decided to go with the lawsuit. Interesting. So in a statement, the parks director said the department has filed a civil lawsuit against 3 property owners who illegally cut down or damaged an estimated 142 trees within the park. The county is also seeking civil penalties and treble damages against the property owners and their contractors. I need to point this out because I always get one person who says, didn't you mean triple damages? And triple, of course, is number one in baseball. It's you hit the ball and you get the third. Second of all, triple does mean 3 times something. But old school, especially in the law, treble, Treble, treble damages is 3 times the damages. And a lot of states have such a law. Michigan has one also. MCL 600-2919. It's one of those ones I have in the top of my head. I've used it before. And if somebody comes onto your property and cuts down your trees, you can sue them for the value of the trees. And a court can treble the damages as a way to deter people, to discourage people from doing it, okay? Because trees are so hard to replace, especially big ones. So this unlawful act caused serious and generational harm to a protected natural area, he said. Most of the trees cut down were classified as significant under the county's code due to their size and ecological importance. He also said the damage disrupted a sensitive habitat. This kind of damage undermines decades of public investment in environmental conservation and responsible land management. We're committed to holding accountable those who violate the public's trust and damage our shared natural resources. He said the homeowners likely thought they wouldn't be caught. I imagine they thought there was a really low probability of anyone finding out. It would have been really hard for someone to have known this happened. I think the only reason we did is we had that wildlife camera there. So King 5 spoke with one of the homeowners named in the lawsuit. He said he believes the work was legal and was done for his family's safety. Mistake number 1. It sounds like he's admitting he did it. While this currently is a civil case, the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office's criminal charges are still possible if referred by the King County Sheriff's Office. So the sheriff could refer it over and say, by the way, prosecute somebody. The fact that so much damage was done and consequently their view was improved raises a lot of questions, someone else said. So this is a wild one in the sense that it does sound like it's a remote location. People might have thought they wouldn't get caught. But of course, there just happens to be somebody who went and planted a trail camera near there to catch wildlife and just happened to see the trees go sliding by. What are the odds? I can tell you that I-75 in Oakland County, Michigan, just north of Detroit, but driving southbound, there is a billboard. There's a billboard just south of 14 Mile Road. And just a typical billboard. And just in front of the billboard, as you're driving towards it, but in front of it, is another billboard. And it goes, "These trees illegally cut. Information, please call this number." And what had happened, apparently, was there's a billboard there. And there were trees in front of the billboard. Now, some people might say, gee, these trees are blocking the view of this billboard. And so somebody says that somebody came along and cut these trees down illegally, because that's what the second sign says. And so the second sign went up to sort of block the view of the other sign. And the whole point is that if you own this sign and it's on property here legally, but there's trees blocking the view of it here, ownership of this would not give you the right to chop those down if they're not on your property. And so that at least is the story told by those signs. I don't know any of the facts about it. It's been probably a year or two since I saw those signs, so I don't know if they're even still there. But weird things like this happen all the time. And I can tell you, I've heard of so many instances of people cutting down trees on other people's property. And it's a dangerous game to play because we're so used to the idea of trees just getting cut down willy-nilly. The power company comes by and clears their easements by just chopping down all these trees. And they come through like a biblical plague. And so we're so used to seeing that, we don't realize that actually trees have value. And the value can be calculated in different ways, one of which is replacement cost. What would it cost to replace a tree? Now, interestingly, arborists will tell you that they can actually replace fairly large trees. Now, obviously, they can't replace a sequoia that touches the outer atmosphere, but they can replace fairly large trees. It's extremely expensive, though. But damages can be calculated in a variety of ways, including not just replacement cost, but, for instance, what's the value of all that wood? I mean, that's probably the lower end, but that alone, what's the cost of 140 large trees? I suspect it's quite a bit of value. What's the cleanup cost? Does somebody now have to go in and chop up these trees? Because to have that many trees felled in one small area might have caused it to look kind of like a bomb went off or something. But also, remember the treble damages. And it can add up really fast. And so I've actually handled cases where someone says someone came onto my property and chopped down trees. And I've heard a bunch of different reasons for it. But the point is, those aren't your trees. Don't chop them down. And I've had people freak out when they hear that, oh, by the way, you're going to get hit with potentially treble damages. And we're going for the full value of replacing those trees. And most people who are sawing down a tree don't stop to think what it would cost to replace this tree. And you're speaking to a guy who owns chainsaws. And I've taken down trees before. And the trees I've taken down, number one, I owned them, or I was helping somebody who owned the tree. And usually the trees I've taken down had problems. I've had dead trees that were doing this, and I decided to take it down before gravity took it down, okay? But the point is, it was my tree on my property. I can do that. But going onto somebody else's property or going onto public property. And you recall, I did a story a couple of years ago, I think out of Ohio, where somebody lived next to a park. And they thought their property line went here, but the park actually was here. So the property line was actually here. And there was a big old tree, and I forgot, but it was some kind of nice wood, hickory or cherry or something. And the people on the property said they thought it was on their property and sold the tree. Somebody came in and chopped the tree down and took it. And then later on, people who run the park, i.e. a government, says, that tree was on our property, you can't do that. And so here's the one thing I'll say about all of this, is that if you pull out a chainsaw and cut down something yourself, that's on you. That's on you. But if you run a wood service and someone calls you and says, I've got trees for sale, you can come get them, you might want to double check to make sure you're on the right property. Because I've heard of people selling off trees off of other people's property. And you can make the argument that I'm here because they told me it was their property. But if it wasn't their property, they don't have the right to grant you permission to trespass on someone else's property. You can get yourself in a bit of trouble there. So I've talked to people about that, and that's where it gets real ugly. Because you can imagine if someone showed up while you're cutting the trees down and said, you're on this property over here, not that property over there. And sometimes these property lines are kind of hard to figure out because they're not exactly drawn on the ground like a dotted line like state boundaries are. Steve, state boundaries aren't actually drawn on the ground. So Randy, thanks for sending that. WGRZ ran the story. County sues homeowners after 140 trees are cut down. Bridget Chavez wrote that. Thank you very much. Questions or comments, put them below those. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave.